Okay. All right. Who has their book? Does everyone have their book or?
Actually, the audio. I was never able to get it from the library.
Okay, so you only watched the movie.
No, I actually got the audiobook.
Oh, okay. So you listened to it. Okay. And you got the audiobook too?
No, it's ebook.
Ebook. Okay.
Yeah. So I can search.
Oh yeah, I have notes. Like I was able to take notes on the app.
I think there's only one translation. I don't think there's multiple translations, but the translation that I have is John E. Wood's. Can everyone else confirm they also have?
Google it.
I believe so. I have. It looks
Yes.
like. I don't know if that changes anything.
No, this is what.
Yeah, it does say actually Johnny Woods. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is what.
Yeah, mine has that. Well.
Okay. I think there's only one actual translation, but you know how some books have multiple translations by different authors, so there's like a bit of a skewing, kind of like the Bible. You know, the Bible has all these different translations.
Right.
So there's different, you know, interpretations of things, but if we all have the same translation, then we all have the same book, essentially.
Yeah.
All right. So this book was broken down into was it 3 parts or 4 parts?
Four, but the fourth was like super short.
Right.
Yeah.
The 4th part was really short. Part 1
it was something.
like,
Oh my God, the ending.
we'll get there. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. So part 1 is the beginnings of Grenouille's life, his birth, circumstances of his birth, the circumstances of his upbringing, and then him honing his skills under the teachings of, what's his name? Oh my gosh. Baldini. Yes, Baldini. And then part 2 is his like hermit stage where he, I didn't really understand why he did all of that, but he runs away. Essentially, he goes to find like the most remote place away from all sense and everything and becomes a hermit in a cave and kind of strips down into this really sort of primitive life. And he does that for 7 years randomly. And then he realizes he doesn't want to do that anymore, and he wants to create this perfect scent that he encountered way back when he was was it before he was working with Baldini? The virgin smell, the smell of the virgin. So he wants to capture that and becomes a serial killer. And then he is convicted, he gets sent to prison, and he gets public execution. We all know what happens after that. And then part 4, he goes to a cemetery and puts on the perfume and gets eaten alive. And that's his life.
I would have never come across this book, I think, if it wasn't part of the book club. And I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed it, even though it's so weird at times. But the way it's written was really, really good.
Like, who comes up with this kind of stuff? You know, this is a completely original work. This is original. This German man, which maybe explains it a little bit. He's German. But he just comes up with this idea of someone who doesn't in and of itself, he doesn't have a smell, but has the most keen sense of smell probably of any human being ever in existence. And it's just like the crazy path this man takes to his final demise. I don't know. It was like, I could have never come up with a story like that.
I was just confused at first when it took place in France. I was like, what's going on?
As opposed to Germany, you mean?
Yeah, I thought German author. I was like, oh, we're going to read a book about Germany. No.
Yeah, but I mean, why, I guess this is a good maybe first question. Why do you think Patrick Suskind decided to put this setting in what 18th century France as opposed to a town in Germany? Like,
I would have thought it has to do with like the perfume culture. I was really impressed like how extensive the writing was, like detailed with the workings of all things perfumery. Um, yeah, I don't know how much research the author had to do to write all of this, but it was super detailed throughout the entire book.
mhm.
Could like not pronounce
Yeah.
a lot of the names of all these things.
Yeah. Even
Right.
down to like the street names and like where in the street. Yeah, it was really, I think the same thing. Like the industry, I guess, kind of seemed to originate there or be really popular there.
Mhm.
And it said that it was the largest city. I don't know if in in just France at the time or in the world at the time. So maybe that's why he also chose it.
Oh, I just Googled it. The origin of perfume is commonly attributed to the ancient Egyptians.
Hmm. Ancient Egyptian.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know if this comes out in the book, but in the movie, Baldini shares like a quote about ancient Egyptians and perfume.
In there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something about that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a town. My mom was super into this book and she was sending me these articles from NPR and stuff. And one of them was about the town of Grasse in France, which is Grasse. It's considered the perfume capital of the world, and basically how perfumers got their beginnings was working in this town of Grasse because it actually, before it became a perfume capital, it was a very stinky place, kind of like 18th century Paris. It was like, oh, I think they were doing, what's the art of leather? Like, what do you call that?
the tanning.
Tanning, yeah, tanning. And so, just like the slaughtering of the animals, the drying of the hides, and all of that stuff, it's obviously can be a really stinky trade. So in order to sort of combat that, and while still keeping the economy thriving, as I think they wanted to get rid of that stinky trade and turn it into something a little more pleasant. And that's sort of where the perfume capital was born. And you can go there now as a tourist. You can go there and they have these perfumery 101 courses where you can learn how to mix these different perfumes based on the chords and the notes and everything, and you can create your own individual perfume, which is honestly something I would like to do. So France, yes, France is sort of ubiquitous with perfume and perfume and the art of perfumery. So that's, I would assume, probably why Patrick decided to put it in Paris, in a really, really stinky time in Paris. I mean, I can't imagine what life was like in 18th century Paris without modern sewage systems, without modern refrigeration systems.
Trash.
Yeah, no, without modern municipal trash services, it must have been like an absolutely miserable place.
He described it pretty well.
Yeah, he did. He really did. And he described Gregory's birth really well, like born in like a fish market.
I can't believe that was the first chapter. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, very descriptive, very lush type language. I'm trying to find Here then on the most putrid spot in the whole king, this is page 4. Whole kingdom. Jean-Baptiste Grenouille was born on July 17th. It was one of the hottest days of the year. The heat lay leaden upon the graveyard, squeezing its putrefying vapor, a blend of rotting melon and the fetid odor of burnt animal horn out into the nearby alleys. When the labor pains began, Grenouille's mother was standing at a fish stall on the Rue aux Fers, scaling whiting that she had just gutted. The fish ostensibly taken that very morning from the Seine, which was probably disgusting at the time, the Seine River, already stank so vilely that the smell masked the odor of corpses. Those people
Yeah,
just don't.
you can smell it.
Yeah.
You
You
really
can smell it. No modern air conditioning, no nothing, just putrefying everything. So very lush language. I mean, if someone could like maybe describe Patrick Suskind's writing style, if you could just like say a couple of things about how his writing style, if you liked it, how does it compare to other writing styles that we've encountered either in the book club or outside the book club? Anybody at all?
Yeah, I liked that there was a narrator because it almost felt like you're, I don't know if it's the right term, but like breaking that fourth wall. Like even after the Grenouille leaves, the lady that was taking care of him, Madame, it started with a G. We get like a really good explanation of how she came to be who she is without really knowing much about her, just the
Yeah.
way that the author describes her, and like how her life had been horrible. And then he goes back and he says, you know, since we're not going to come back to her anymore, like let me tell you how the rest of her life ends up going. So like you go back, even though it's not necessarily part of Grenouille's story, you go back to see like where like he ties up the loose ends really well. So I really enjoyed that because that's always something I think about when I'm reading other books, you know, when certain characters come up and then sometimes you don't know what even happens to them, like they're just not in the story anymore. So I enjoyed that. And then with Baldini too, you get to know like what ends up happening to him. And I think even the tenor, Grimaud, I think we also know what happens to him. Like we get like a nice finish to like everything, even though it's not a nice end to the character. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, Madame Gaillard is her name. And she was born, well, she lost her sense of smell when her father struck her across the forehead with a poker. And that's why she doesn't really know that Grenouille is a strange being, but she doesn't know that he doesn't have a smell.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Thanks for sharing that, Daniela. Anyone else want to add to that?
Similar to that, knowing both sides, I liked when he told both sides, like in a conversation, like this person's saying this, but he thinks this, but on the other hand, this person says this, and he's thinking this, and it was just fun, like the interplay to read about.
Yeah, I think we would call that omniscient, not narration. It's the narrator knows everything, you know, even.
And he tells us it too. It's nice.
Yeah, like the narrator knows what's being said, and they also know what's being thought, you know, what's happening in the brain and behind the scenes and the nuances behind all of that as well. So like a very omniscient presence in terms of this narrator. Natalie, did you want to add anything about the writing style?
Not a lot, just yeah, it was definitely different from what I've read, and I'm really glad this book club kind of pushes me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure. I would say like not a I can't talk. Not a dialogue heavy book.
Oh.
Like there is dialogue and the narrator says that somebody has said something without putting into quotes, or just sort of incorporates it into the narrative of the story. But like in terms of actual dialogue happening between two people, it's very rare that happens. And it does happen, and he actually takes like an aside when it's between Baldini and his assistant, I guess.
Mhm. Chevy something.
Chenier.
Yeah.
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 Oh yeah, so there's this whole chapter 10 is like almost like a script. Baldini, this is what Baldini says.
Oh yeah. That was
He
random
really
in there.
wanted to make sure that was like, because you could have made that into some like a regular dialogue piece that happens in most novels. It's just like a back and forth. But he wanted it to kind of stick out above the rest because there's so much that needed to be said, and I guess that was the easiest way for him to do it. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. That was the only time that he employed this sort of style. Everything else was either just like random quotes here and there, or it was just incorporated into the story. So for me, it was like very flowy, very just story line prose, not a lot of dialogue breaking up what we were reading. It just sort of started at point A and went to point B and then point C, etc. Okay.
Yeah, I
but-
didn't. Oh, sorry. I
No,
hadn't
go ahead,
noticed.
Daniela, go ahead.
I just realized I didn't notice that because I didn't actually see any of how it was written.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really, until now that you mentioned it, noticed that between the characters there's not a lot of dialogue, but it made it easy to listen to it because it was almost like listening to like a podcast. But it's hard. It's actually my first time ever listening to an audiobook. I've never liked
Really?
it. I prefer to read it because what ends up happening is as I'm listening, I get distracted by something that I see. So then I realize, oh, I didn't even hear what he just said. So I would have to keep going back, which is why I prefer to read it. But I mean, the story, the way it was written, really lend itself to, like, because of the narrator, to be an easy listen, I guess you could call it. So that was good. But I did mention, sorry, I did not mention, what am I saying? I did make a note in the app about the reference or the analogy of the tick.
Yes.
Would that be foreshadowing or just an analogy?
I don't know, because obviously if you're paying attention early on, you catch on that there is this tick motif. And personally, I mean, I don't know who likes ticks, right? But I
I've
find
never seen one.
it's just one of those things that, like, I really don't like ticks. Like, I really don't like ticks. And so to equate the main character as a tick obviously creates a sense of disgust and like an aversion to this person, because the narrator is throughout the entire book equating his character with a tick. So what is a tick? A tick is a parasitic organism that latches onto a host organism and takes blood from it, and sometimes will leave behind things like a disease, will leave behind, a bite mark, if nothing else, if you don't take care of it soon enough. And they're just like, they're gross when they fill up with blood and they get really, really big, and and then you have to pull them off, and then even if you pull them off and you rip them apart, like they're still alive. Oh God, I hate them so much. Like you have to kill them
How
in a
big
really,
do they
really
get?
specific way.
I mean, the ones on like dogs get pretty big. I know.
Yeah, like I dated
I've had
this
one
guy.
before.
What was that, Dina?
I had one before.
Yeah, yeah, and you just like you get the heebie-jeebies, you know. I used to,
Yeah,
a
I
long
mean, yeah,
time
they
ago, I
can be
dated
pretty
this
rough.
guy.
My
Go
mom
ahead.
has Lyme disease when I was younger from a tick bite, and she never even found the tick or had the common rash.
Hmm.
She got Bell's palsy, which the left side of your face goes paralyzed, and like that's how she found out she had Lyme disease.
This is Sammy you're talking
yikes.
about?
No, this was my mom, but then yeah, Sammy. Sammy has had Lyme disease for like over a decade.
Mhm.
It was like discovered pretty late, and then it just like caused like a host of like other issues too.
Yeah, and it can go misdiagnosed. Like doctors
Yeah,
don't
she didn't
know
realize she
to
had it like for a
even.
couple years.
They think it's some strange thing, and then they realize it's Lyme disease and it's already progressed and festered in your body. So yeah, ticks just never good. I dated this guy a long time ago who had very outdoors dogs. They like to go into the woods and do whatever for hours on end and then come back. And at the time I was like, oh, it's cute, like the dogs are sleeping with us, and then in the middle of the night I would feel these ticks crawling up my
No!
and I like every morning I would take the ticks off of these dogs, and they were all so like turgid and huge, and I'm just like,
I don't know why they're like bigger on dogs than like the ticks humans get. It's weird.
it's gross.
Ones that cause Lyme disease are real little, at
Yeah.
least that I'm familiar with. Deer ticks.
Yeah. So anyways, why
Yeah, that's a
would
bad memory for you.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd have nightmares.
But
Oh,
everyone has the heebie-jeebies when it comes to ticks. They're just like God's, like, why are they here? Kind of thing. What purpose do they serve other than being parasitic gross things? So why would Patrick equate Jean-Baptiste Grenouille to a tick? Like what sort of connection is he trying to make with the reader by doing that?
I mean, that he's not really contributing much. Although he did make some good perfume, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really contribute too much to society throughout his entire life. I mean, obviously he comes from really rough beginnings. He's an orphan and he's living in an orphanage and is subjected to bullying. Isn't he bullied early in his life? I mean, people just thought that he was
Trying to kill him. The kids.
Because you can't
Yeah, yeah.
smell him. Yeah.
Because they just
Which
knew
is
that
weird.
this person was just not a normal person,
Would he maybe also want to show that he's not fully human because he doesn't have his own scent and more like an animal, in that he doesn't care, like, or maybe he doesn't understand like things like love, and I think it says it in the book, like words like random words, I can't remember, like justice or civility, things like that, like they meant nothing to him, but because he didn't understand them, or he just couldn't, he wasn't human enough to like get there.
Yeah, I mean, some of the basic human concepts that we know and that we get from our childhood and from human interaction. You know, he doesn't really have the ability to comprehend any of that or want to comprehend any of it. He's just sort of like floating through life. I mean, he has emotions, you know, especially when he goes to live in the cave in part 2, like he has these emotions, like he reaches this sort of elation when he gets to this point where he's not around anybody and he's able to live without the burden of always smelling something. So he has these like euphoric moments, and he reaches euphoria, but he's also very duplicitous. You know, one moment he's thinking like, life is great, I've reached my point of absolute euphoria, and then soon after he's like, wait, this isn't what I wanted at all. And he does the same thing in part 3 during the execution scene. He thinks that he's reached some sort of euphoria and some godlike state almost, and then everything just comes crashing down and he realizes that that's not what is happening or what he is gathering from that scenario. So he's obviously a person who is able to emote, but it's just a very strange, it's just strange.
Yeah.
So Tick something that sort of just sucks the life out of other people, which he literally does with many women.
26.
Yeah, that's a serial killer. And that thought probably never even really crossed his mind, like, oh, I'm killing these women, I'm a serial killer, I'm killing these women because I'm trying to make the best perfume in the world. Like,
He needs to keep their scent. Whatever.
Yeah, like it's all logical to
Yeah.
him.
He has a single purpose.
yeah, it all makes sense in his head. And
Like when they were questioning his motive, he just said that he just needed this.
He
needed it.
Very sort of
makes sense.
single-minded, like
Yeah.
focused solitarily on what he needs to accomplish. So, you know, that's probably a Tick. A Tick probably only has one goal in life, and that is to find a host to latch onto and draw blood. So I'd say Tick is a pretty good motif or a good comparison to the character.
The Tick probably has a drive to reproduce too, but looks like he's worse than a Tick.
What could be worse than a Tick?
This guy.
Chapter 13 I thought was really interesting because it talks about Giuseppe Baldini and just like Giuseppe is again a very duplicitous person. You know, he wants to retire, he's tired of this life, he knows he's not a good perfumer, he knows he's not going anywhere in life, and he has this like a string of thoughts where he starts out one way and then he realizes that it's not what he wants, and it's just kind of funny. Like the character of Baldini, he's just, I would just describe him as a duplicitous person. And I don't have like a specific excerpt or anything, but I just wanted to point that out because, you know, it's just
Could have
funny.
gotten out.
Huh?
He could have gotten out and not burned alive or whatever.
He could have, but man, the timing.
Yeah.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
And
when all of his when he left his masters and they all started dying, like I almost was wondering, like, was he behind any of it? Because they really hadn't gotten to like the heart of the murders yet that I feel like I was
Yeah.
anticipating. It's
Yeah,
like
like
a
all
pattern.
of them died.
Yeah,
Like,
like they all died after he left.
I saw it as he was like bad luck in a way. Like he was good enough to them for a while. Like each one of them kind of got what they wanted out of him or what they needed out of him and used him in a way. And then when he leaves, it kind of just comes crashing down. And I feel like it's almost like a for
Like a tick.
yeah, yeah, like it's I don't know, I guess life kind of getting them back for doing that, but also because it seems the book seems to imply that he's like evil, even though he doesn't necessarily know that, and even when he kills the first virgin, it's on accident. So like the fact that they were, I guess, dealing with someone that's evil kind of comes back to bite them, and then they lose everything that they wanted initially. Like the Madame, I forgot her name, and then the Baldini, of course, he loses everything. So I thought that that was why. Um,
He came in like a wrecking ball.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
they finally, he said he was evil in chapter 32.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, I feel like I read
Finally.
that.
Yeah. But it was like later on.
Mm-hmm.
You said chapter 32.
Yeah.
That's during his little. Oh, this
Yeah,
is
he
when
said he wanted to do it because he was evil, thoroughly evil, and he smiled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I felt like the time in the cave was, I almost thought he was gonna switch things around, like not be evil, just because he had so much like reflection and he had spent so much time alone that I thought like maybe he'll want to be with people and he'll want to be normal. Um, but yeah, I mean it was still a good ending, you know, the way it went down. But I almost thought there was some redemption there until there wasn't for him.
Yeah, I wasn't
I
really
just
sure.
had cons
Go ahead, Adina.
oh, I just had concerns that nothing was ever gonna happen after the first murder, which that is true, that he never suffered any consequences for that. Although I guess if you count the ending, maybe, but
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
the circumstances behind that murder and it being the time period that it was, you know, you could literally just walk away and never be caught. You know, there wasn't such a thing as DNA or
Forensic
surveillance
science.
or anything like that, you know. So you'd imagine like how many people got away with murder back in the day because
Mhm.
those technologies just didn't exist.
Yeah. And for the ending of how they blamed the other journeyman
Yes.
who ended up being
Uh,
arrested. Poor
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, he never really faced justice for what he did because even his death was like on his own choosing. Like he
Mhm.
brought it onto
Mhm.
himself knowingly. So he didn't really face any consequences, even morally of okay, you know, I'm so messed up, I deserve to die. It was like, well, I don't care anymore.
Yeah,
So
like I'm done and I'm going
yeah.
I'm going to die.
Like he did what he needed to do. He fulfilled his
Mhm.
one goal in life, and what else is there to live for after that? You've
Yeah.
created the
well,
most
he couldn't
central.
solve his problem.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ay, ay, ay. What about okay? Let's move on. Um uh okay, we already answered that question. I had some like existential kind of questions that were, you know, not necessarily related to the book, but were good questions to ask. But let me see if I can get through the ones that actually pertain to the book itself. Okay, we already touched on that. Is Grenouille good or bad? It's obviously bad. Like, we know this.
Yeah. To the core.
He's incapable of understanding complex human emotions.
Mm-hmm.
He's very manipulative.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think you can say like I have sympathy because he's had a bad childhood. No, like he had chances and he did not improve.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like what do you call that? Divine, not divine intervention, but just divine
Retribution.
stars that this was just who he was.
Mm.
And there was nobody that he was going to meet, not like a woman that he was going to fall in love with. Like he would see this woman, but he wouldn't feel any like sexual desire for her, right? He wasn't trying to rape her or take her out or anything like that. Like he just wanted to encapsulate her smell. That was it. And that's such like a primitive, almost too primitive for us to comprehend because we don't have the sense of smell that he has. So, like, I guess maybe in a sense that we don't know what it would be like to be a person that has such an insanely keen sense of smell. Like how that would probably shape you as a person so much that it would drive you insane, which is exactly what happened. It sort of drove him insane. And to be able to do the craziest stuff, like predict storms that would happen days in advance, and know the scent of a
He could see in the dark because he could smell where things were.
Right, yeah, he didn't even need his
people from
eyesight.
far away, from different rooms. It's crazy. Know when people have like left buildings, like
There was a part in the movie because I think the way they did it, they had to kind of bring things in for it to flow as a movie. But there is a section in the movie, I don't want to spoil it, but if you guys watch it, where it almost seems like at the very end, he does have a reflection of what would have happened if I didn't kill, so there's that little bit that I think is obviously not in the book because he doesn't have that in the book, but as the reader, you kind of think that for him. Or I think at one point he does say, like, when he kills the first virgin, he just kind of ruined it. He killed the scent, he just inhaled it. And that's when he starts wanting to preserve it. But in the movie, there is like a part where you see like, okay, if he would have just been different, he could have kept, he could have maybe been with her and always had that there. But he didn't know that was an option, and instead he just killed her. So I thought that was interesting to see that different perspective.
Could there have been a way to preserve the smell without having to kill somebody for it,
Yeah.
I thought there was maybe potential, like especially after his makeover, like after the mountain, and how at the end of his makeover, like he really felt like a normal human, like he fit in. I thought there was potential for him to just kind of find his own thing, and I thought he was gonna like be a master perfumer, and just went downhill.
Well, especially when he was doing the experiments and he was like, he got the homeless woman to like wear the cloths. I was like, oh, he figured out a different way. And then when he murdered the puppy, I was like, no.
Yeah, that's like,
I was like, this is going downhill.
Why the puppy? Dog is like dog.
Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah, very Dexter, very sort of Dexter. Yeah, I would kind of compare his. Now that I'm thinking about it, Grenouille is kind of like Dexter. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Dexter. It's one of my favorite shows. But Dexter is sort of like just a hollow person who
Mhm.
pretends to be a normal person functioning in a normal
Mhm.
society, but he's a serial killer. Like that's who he is deep down, and he has to try and mask that as best he can. Now, Grenouille doesn't do that. He just lives his life how he knows how to live. He doesn't try to fit in. I mean, he actually tries to fit in for that little bit of time at the end of part 3 where he creates I think it's the end of part 3, might be the beginning of part 4, where he creates a perfume that allows people to perceive his presence, right? Because before that, he was going through the world and people had no idea he was even there. Like he was almost a ghost because he had no scent. And then he created this scent that was like unique to him, and all of a sudden people were recognizing him, acknowledging him, you know, not like running into him at the street and things like that. So
Yeah.
he attempts to be, I think he made an attempt to be a normal person, but then he gets that smell from that woman and
Mhm.
it's all just, it's gone. That he remembers his purpose, and that is to create the best perfume in the world.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, interesting. He's like just a shell of a person.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the ending. Let's talk about the execution scene because I saw the movie first before I read the book. So my like
Really?
visual of what was happening
Oh, interesting.
was like super lush and yeah, just such a oh, gosh.
What did
Did anybody
what did they do
predict-
in the movie?
Huh?
How did they display that in the movie?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's
That's
rated
right.
R. I think
It
it's
is.
rated R.
Yeah.
So it was just a big orgy?
Yeah. Everyone gets naked and starts making out with each other. Like it's
What the heck?
exactly how it is in the book.
So
He
weird.
puts on the perfume before he is released to be transported to the execution site, and the executioners realize that this man is innocent, and he
They
convinces
no
them
longer want to kill him.
put him in a beautiful ornate carriage like like King Charles did this past weekend, like beautiful horse-drawn carriage, come up to the execution site. Everyone is like gnawing at the bit, chewing at the bit to have this man publicly executed, because that was, you know, just like the Colosseum in Rome, you know, public executions was like just that was their entertainment. That was what everyone looked forward to. So everyone was there in the town square, and then he comes out and people are like, this man is innocent. Like
Angel.
he's an angel. How could he's
a
like
hero.
murder, you know? And then he goes up there and he does his little handkerchief thing, and people are like, they just start fawning over him, and then things just start really unraveling, and everyone starts getting really sort of sensual with each other. And yeah, people just they start unclothing each other, and it's massive.
Someone did not search him very well.
I know,
For
that's what I was
Chris.
thinking. Yeah, like how did he I was so surprised that he had the vial with him of the
Yeah, and
perfume.
you know,
Yeah, me too.
my mom talked about that too. She texted me and she was like, I just don't understand why he had the vial of perfume while he was in jail. And
Yeah.
perhaps he used the perfume to, I don't know, like he used the perfume to get into no, because then they would have released him. They would have thought he was innocent. Maybe they just thought it was like this innocuous thing, like, oh, he has this vial of perfume, like what danger could that do, you know?
Yeah, I know at first they didn't believe that it was him because he's so small and insignificant. So I think ever since he made the perfume, he had to have it on him all the time, like just carrying it with him. So when they arrested him, it was on him. And then they didn't want to believe it was him until they found all the evidence of like all the ladies' clothes and their hair, that they finally were like, okay, it's him. And then he
I thought
confessed.
I thought he was wearing like one of the other perfumes, his like insignificant perfume or something when they first came to get him, or they said something
Maybe.
about that. But yeah, it does seem like he was wearing something.
Mhm.
Yeah, how did he get that vial of perfume all the way to the jail cell? And then in the movie, his hands are tied, right? And he just sort of, with his hands tied, he uncorks the vial and just sort of does a little dab right here and here. And then when they open up the jail cell, they're just like,
Yeah. They let him change and wear different clothes.
so
So strange.
did anyone predict that was going to be the culmination of this perfume that he was making?
I have a really funny story because I was listening to it. So sometimes I would listen as I was going to sleep, and it was that I was playing, and then I'm like half asleep, and then I just hear like what's going on, and I'm like, wait, what? I woke up and I like go back, and I'm like, okay, wait,
Yeah, how did we get
What's
here? What's going on? Am I listening to the same story? Did I like, did it just
yeah, it was such a
automatically-
trip because I'm like, wait, what happened? Like, I thought they were gonna kill him, and then it was like something about like grandfather with like granddaughter, and I'm like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, what is happening? So yeah,
Yeah,
it was not
the
expected.
whole time, I definitely did not think he was gonna actually get executed. I did not realize what this perfume would do, but I definitely was like, how is he gonna get out of this? What's gonna happen?
I mean, it's in a sense, it's kind of genius. But I don't know if he knew that that was going to be the reaction that would happen. Like, I don't know if he was creating this perfume, he was like, yeah, this is gonna make everyone want to have sex with each other.
And to get a new
To put
father.
it bluntly,
To get a new father too.
this is
Yeah,
gonna
that's
make
true.
everyone horny, and they're all gonna love me and worship me. I don't know. I have no idea if that's what because if he was incapable of those sort of emotions, how would he know how other people would react to the
Right.
perfume?
Yeah, I think that twist, where Rishi asks him to be his son, I felt was so sad and like a sick twist because like he just killed
Yeah.
his only daughter, and it's just crazy how he's like, oh, be my son, like
Right,
I'll
yeah.
take care
Because he's smelling his
He's like,
daughter on.
of her.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're just like her. You're like
He's
replacing
like,
her, but you're a boy, so you're even better.
Yeah, exactly.
it's so
Because he
messed
wanted
up.
sons.
It's so
Mhm.
messed up.
I know. It was like, ugh.
But I mean, again, like, how did Patrick Suskind come up with this story? You know, it's very original.
There was a part, in chapter 49. I don't know exactly where, but chapter 49, where he talks about what people were thinking when they smelled the perfume, and like each, like for example, women would think one thing, and then I found it very interesting. He said that men saw the ideal image of themselves
Mhm.
when they were like experiencing that scent. And I thought that was very interesting because I don't know if you guys are able to find it, but the way everyone else is described, like it's not selfish. It's like women like see like the most handsome guy or something. But men, what they
To
saw,
men,
I think,
I have it. Um, they felt as if, wait, where'd it go? To men as their ideal image of themselves.
Mhm.
so I think prior to that, there's a section about how other people
Uh,
were reacting to it.
mm, mm, mm.
Yeah.
grabbing
Well-
their swords. I don't know.
Oh. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting how men were just focused on themselves,
Mhm.
and that, I guess, when they were in that headspace of the scent, where women, for example, were thinking of like their ideal, most handsome partner, and they're just like, oh, men were just perfect.
Yeah, just
So
thinking
it's
about themselves, the ego.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because, you know, the whole book, it keeps going back to like how ugly Grenouille is. You know, he's an ugly man, and he goes through life without people noticing him, or being like reviled by him. And then he has this perfume, and all of a sudden he's perceived as being an angel, a perfect specimen of a man, all because of the power of scent. Like, you know, they, you know, just imagine what the smell was, you know, what was the smell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
As
when
to the Satanist, like
Go ahead.
he appeared to the Satanist as the shining Lord of Darkness.
What page is that on?
It's like right in the middle of chapter 49.
Okay, that, yeah, I mean, that was the climax, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because then they start ripping their clothes off in the next paragraph.
Hundreds of breasts everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the movie does a really good job of just describing, like, you know, you have, I'd say mostly lower class people in the crowd, you know, attending this execution. But, you know, you've got like very old men and young women, and you've got, you know, people who would never ever see each other as partners, you know, sexual partners, and all of a sudden they just turn to their neighbor and they're just like, hello, you know. So it just created such a visceral reaction in people, and then when they woke up, they were so embarrassed by what they had done, and they never talked about it ever again. It was never mentioned ever again. People just, it was almost like a fever dream for the entire crowd.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 people.
All because of a waft. Like, no one even got it was a diluted, you know, on a piece of.
I know, I was thinking, like, how did he get the entire crowd? Like, how did he get everyone with this odor that travels so quickly so far?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the kind of perfume that he created. It's like this superhuman thing that sort of defies all knowledge and beliefs that we have about how we perceive scent and how scent travels, and, you know, the idea that scent can literally change our behavior
Mm-hmm.
when it's
Even
done in
like
that way.
blind people, you know, like they smelled certain things and then they didn't see him anymore. They saw something different.
Mm-hmm.
I think the genre that it was under on the audiobook app was mystery. Like it was kind of mystery. So I guess part of that's just kind of the fantastical aspect of it, where it just happened.
Yeah, mystery, science fiction.
Why
Mhm.
does it say that the result was it degenerated into the largest orgy the world had seen since the 2nd century before Christ? What is he talking about?
I don't know, must be something in the Old Testament. I'm not too well versed on the Old Testament, so
Yeah.
must be some, I mean, I know some crazy stuff went down in the Old Testament, so.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody could have predicted that ending. You know, you're just like, you know, what's gonna happen when he reveals the scent? Well, they're just gonna love, I don't know.
Yeah, he wanted to be loved, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for a brief moment in time, he did feel love, but then immediately after, he realized that he's just still an empty vessel, and you
With
know,
no scent.
Mhm.
It didn't fulfill him anyways to
yeah,
create.
Nothing, yeah, nothing would ever create his scent because he had no scent.
hmm and he was running out. That's the thing. He was running out of the scent that he created for himself,
Mhm.
and he knew like his time was running up or running out. I mean,
Mhm. In the movie, I think when the whole like orgy starts happening, he seems kind of like confused and disgusted almost. Which is interesting to just I guess visually see that. Um, and then yeah, I was more shocked by how it ends, like how he dies, than the orgy part. I was like, oh, what? It was very shocking. But yeah, I mean, both were. It's funny because they were both very like big surprises, just like a chapter, like in between.
yeah. How does it? I don't. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, obviously, but how does it? Does it end the same way?
Yeah, so yeah, I forgot how he gets off, but basically he's not interested in what everyone else is doing, and he just is kind of like over it. He walks back to Paris, and he goes to where he was born,
Mm.
and there's like a bunch of people would be like I guess like homeless people. They're like huddled around a fire, and um he sees them, and I think he smiles, and then he takes out the vial and he drowns himself in the perfume completely, and then it's almost like he lights up and there's like a light emanating from him, so people turn around to look at him and they're like, oh, like it's beautiful, or he's beautiful, or he's an angel, and they go to him, they start like smelling him and then just start taking bites out of him and dismembering him and just trying to like absorb him. So he ends up like just a pile of remains on the floor, and then it goes to the next day and people don't notice him anymore. So like the last line from the narrator is read like as you're watching it. So it says something I think about they thought they were doing it the first thing they did out of love, something like that. I
Yeah,
think
that was the last line in the book too.
yeah, so it's shocking because you see what is on the screen. It's just like his remains, and everyone's just passing them by, like not even paying attention to what's left on the ground of him. And then it's like the last line is like red. And then at the very end, you see the vial, and there's like one little drop left of perfume.
Mm.
Ooh, sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
gonna take that file.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
in the book, I think he goes to the cemetery, right?
Yeah.
yes.
Goes to Les
Is there a
Halles and
cemetery?
the Cimetière des Innocents, and that is not where he was born. So you're saying in the movie he goes back to where he was born?
To the fish market, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because then everyone wakes up and just goes about their day. They run
Cool.
him over for a few days. And then like on the third day, some little kids start playing with like his remains.
Ooh, gross.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's kind of cool, like a full circle type thing. Place where he was born is the place that he
Mhm.
dies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's gonna get that file? Okay, wow, very good. Well, anyone else want to talk about how they felt about that particular part of the book? Anything you just dying to say about how everything just turned out the way it did and no one could have predicted that, probably.
Mm-mm.
Same thoughts. I was like, how did we come up with this?
Pretty
Yeah.
remarkable. This is why you need writers,
Yes.
not AI. That's why we gotta pay our writers. Okay, so these questions I'm gonna ask are just like, how many do I have here? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so everyone can just answer one question, and we'll just go around. So I'll start with Natalie. What would you do if you were given a sense of smell similar to Grenouille's? Like, how do you think your life would be if you superhuman scent?
No, that's a really good question. And I was thinking about this like all through the book. I was trying to think of just like if my sense of smell was really sensitive and heightened, or even just like my sense of smell now, I was just trying to think like, what do people smell like? And like I was thinking about people and like there's not really like a lot of people who I'm like you smell like this certain scent. I feel like the only person that I could really think of was like my mom. I feel like there's like this scent that I've always like smelled about her, and it's like it's nothing specific. It's just like her smell, her whole life. So, yeah, I mean, I think that if I had this superhuman, smell, which kind of reminded me, since I have cats, like reminded me that like my cats, their senses of smell are like super heightened, and um they notice things like a lot more, and they're actually like pretty attracted to like weird smells. Like cats like dirty like funky scents and like odors. So I'm okay like not having a super heightened sense of smell. I feel like it would, yeah, just make me like the main character just like get into just these really weird patterns, and yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be able to, since you have cats, you would be able to know like when they're gonna be sick before they're sick, and you would probably perceive everyone else as being the same, or sort of like a service animal that's able to detect
Hmm.
when
Different health
somebody is,
conditions before you have like, yeah, like a
yeah,
heart attack or um yeah, different like dangerous scenarios like before they happen. It's definitely a good skill to have. But
probably drive
yeah.
you insane.
Yeah. Just make you, it would definitely like, I feel like it would alter just all of your other senses, and really mess like with your overall
Yeah.
perception. Like it's a great skill to have for some stuff, but yeah, I aim to be like a balanced person. So
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to know when like, oh, that woman is menstruating.
yeah.
Like that's weird.
Yeah.
But
I feel like you would get sick too. Like, you know how whenever you smell something too strong, it almost nauseates you?
yeah,
Mhm.
Like, if you had that super strong sense, like, you might almost be sick all the time because you're not always going to control what you can,
Yeah,
get.
even if they're nice scents. I had bought a diffuser, and I had accidentally put like way too many drops of like lavender oil, and it's a great scent, but when it's like too high, like it was giving me a headache, and it wasn't making me feel like bad for a scent that is intentionally supposed to be calming.
Yeah, too much of a good thing.
Quite the opposite effect. So yeah, I see why it can drive you to madness.
Now, when I had COVID, it was like when I had COVID the first time, the OG COVID, and I lost my sense of smell. I was like bargaining with God, like, please give me my sense of smell back. Like I just want my sense of smell and my sense of taste back. And finally, when I got it back, I was like, oh, so, it's like, there's two extremes. You can't smell anything, and that's the worst. And then what if you were able to smell way too much? That would also be probably a really terrible situation.
Do you guys find that true that like other humans in your life have like signature scents or like smells that resonate with you? Do you guys also find that? Because I was just like, I don't know if I smell. I don't know my smell.
I have that question about myself too. I'm like, I wonder what I smell like to other people. But I do definitely, like you mentioned, with my mom, I feel like I can go into her room and like if I smell her pillow, like it smells like her. But I don't know how much of that is like she always uses the same, perfume, the same like fabric softener. But at the same time, it doesn't smell just like that. It smells like those things, but her too. And then probably because that's the most like that's the person that I'm most, all like feel comfortable getting all up close to her and whatever. With my dad, I think I could also kind of recognize him, but for him, it's more of like the specific cologne that he'll use. And then with my brother, and these are just like the people closest to me. With my brother, I only ever get to smell like his shirt because he's so tall. So whenever I hug him, like just chest. So I feel like I could recognize that, but yeah, that those are probably the only people, and probably my best friend, but it's not her smell, it's her house. Like, let's say I let her borrow a shirt of mine and she gives it back. If I smell it, it smells like her house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that happening to me. I would let my friend who's Cambodian, I'd let her borrow my sweatshirt or whatever. And, in her Cambodian household, they're always cooking rice. They're always cooking delicious, Cambodian and South Asian foods and, or Southeast Asian. And then she would give it back to me and it would just be like, oh, it smells like you. Like it smells like you and your family and and I love that. It's so different than what I know my household would smell like.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow, that's what her house smells like all the time. She probably doesn't even know that her house smells like that, right? To get used to it, get nose blind or whatever. So you kind of wonder like, if someone were to borrow
some
my
clothes,
stuff, what would it smell like?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Did anyone try to smell their inner elbow to get their strongest scent? I did.
I did too.
And all I smelled was sunscreen. And I was like,
The funny thing is that I was at church on Sunday and I wasn't kneeling because I was too tired, but I just had my hands up like this and my head down. So it was exactly like this. The whole time that we were like in prayer, I was just sniffing like both of them.
What do I smell like?
I was like, it's not a bad scent. It's pretty good.
Yeah. It's funny.
I know.
Yeah, the things you do in church. I know.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of an offshoot of all that we were just talking about. So I guess I'll point this to Adina because Danielle, you kind of already answered this. So Adina, are there any specific smells that conjure up some of your memories? And then, like what sort of smells do you think take you back, maybe as transportive because on page 82, you know, Baldini, he talks about how the sense of smell is so odors have a power of persuasion stronger than that of words, appearances, emotions, or will. The persuasive power of an odor cannot be fended off. It enters into us like breath into our lungs. It fills us up and imbues us totally. There is no remedy for it. So, you know, I mean, those are that's a pretty striking statement. So obviously scent is tied to our memories and our emotions. You have any sense that?
So yeah, for sure. There's like pine trees for me.
What is
Like
it?
there's this one pine trees
Okay.
in this park near where Natalie and I both live, Forest Park. There's this one grove of like pine trees, and when I go by it, I'm always like, oh, it takes me back to my grandparents' place in Oregon, and just remember like hanging out there in the summer or whatever. So definitely scents like that.
Oh, that's cool. So
Um,
you're in Central, not Central Park, but you're in Manhattan and you smell pine trees and it reminds you of a place literally on the other side of the country. That's cool.
yeah. And then of course food and all that, you know.
Yeah, food, definitely.
It's a big one.
Definitely. Like if my parents make pierogies, you know, I'm immediately drawn back to my grandmother and her making pierogies back in the day, that sort of like onion and sour cream concoction. Very transportive. And then even like some,
Butter and onions.
yeah. Then like, you know, even the perfume that she used to wear it was called Wind Song. I smell that now and it's like, yeah, immediately transporting me back to her bedroom when I was a kid. So, you know, like scents are amazing. They serve such an amazing purpose beyond just perceiving smells, good smells, bad smells. You know, they're also like inherently tied to our memory. Daniela, let's see, what would be a good question for you? Oh, I guess, well, those were the two existential questions, but we can answer these other two. Well, yeah, part two, I mean, if we could just go back to part two for a little bit. Did you like it? Did you feel like it had served a purpose? Just him
When
leaving
he's
society?
when he's in the cave, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was when I felt like he could have changed for the better. Sorry, there was a fly a fly in front of me. It's still there. I didn't realize how long it was that he was there until, you know, it obviously says it was like 7 years. I remember when the chapter starts, it says something about how he didn't know that that was going to be the end of the road for him, something along those lines. So I almost thought something bad was going to happen to him and he was going to die, and then somehow the rest of the book would still go on. So I was super like, what do they mean this is the end, like, of the, like, this is where he would stay? And then they go on to tell you he's there for so long. So I felt like you could have definitely made that part shorter in order to maybe do a little bit more, have a little bit more room in the end. But at the end of the day, I did like it because I felt like that was the one part where he got to be alone. He got to realize that he didn't have a scent. So like there's something wrong with him. But with that realization, instead of, you know, trying to fix it, he just kind of found a purpose that, you know, for him was important, but was that like, it kind of seems like the wrong thing because he wasn't able to grow from that. Like he stays the same, you know, wretched creature throughout the whole story, which is you know, realistic. Sometimes that happens. Not everyone has like redeemable qualities or growth, right? In real life and in characters. Like that's just how it is. So I did enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, probably the most human you get to experience from him. It's the most human you'll
Yeah.
feel for him. Like maybe, yeah, you feel for him a little bit during that time because he does realize that he doesn't have a spell, and it's like a very existential crisis type thing for him. He just
It almost kills him.
it
Yeah.
but it also, I guess, in a sense, empowers him because now he's able to create a perfume that allows people to perceive him and treat him like a normal human being, even though he's really kind of not. And then, of course, he has the recollection of smelling this woman, and that sort of just sends him right back to square one. So okay, yeah, part two. When I was reading it, I was like, okay, like let's get to the murdery part.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, like
That was the part where I felt he could have done maybe a little bit more. Is for us to know how he killed the people, because it kind of does talk about it, but it goes so fast and there's so many of them.
right, yeah, it remains a mystery until pretty much the end of his
Last
perfume
one.
making process, which obviously there's a reason why Patrick Suskind did it that way. I don't know what the reason is, but you know, it was like it was a mystery. You knew that he was killing these women, but you didn't really know what he was doing with the bodies. You didn't know how he was preparing to encapsulate their smell until the last part where he talks about the oiled cloths and the distillation and all this stuff that
And
goes.
like he would actually time it, like, because at a certain point
6 hours.
It'd be too much. Yep.
Yeah. So I was like, oh wow. Because I did have that thought where he mentioned that he would try to do it with animals, and if they would get scared, it would ruin the scent.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like he has to kill them in a way where they don't see it coming, they're not scared, because if not, that ruins their scent. Like there's fear instead of like, I don't know, virgin smells. So that was different. That was different because in the movie, I guess to make it more dramatic, it's almost like not like a jump scare, but it's like, you know, a girl's walking down the street and then I don't know where it's like, like she gets attacked. But it's different because in the book it's like you just find the bodies, like you don't know how it happens. I mean you do obviously at the end, but they just keep popping up. And I think that's the part where I would have wanted more, because there's obviously, you know, so much detail at the beginning. Not that I want to know like the details of how they died, but I felt like it would serve a purpose for the story.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, they stopped giving us his perspective for like all of those murders.
Yes.
Which was odd. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very just like moving along after you know this like long ass part two where you're like, okay, well the murder's got to start at some point, you know. When are they gonna start?
I thought maybe there wouldn't be any more murders.
After the first murder, you are a murderer, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
You could have said the story of a serial killer, so that would probably you know make it a little more
accurate.
Yeah. But I guess murderer is more really like maybe serial killer wasn't even a word. No, I don't know. Did they use the word serial killer at all in this? Like there's a serial killer on the loose. We must find him and capture him. Yeah, I don't even know if that was a term because probably the idea of killing multiple people probably wasn't a thing.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's spot on. Like, who could imagine someone being so evil that they would kill
multiple people.
Only the devil himself, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, when
Well, they went through a lot of other options, like the gypsies and the
So many options. They
Italians.
choose like the entire town.
Yeah.
Poor Italians.
the
They have-
visiting workers. Oh,
I'm
gosh.
literally Googling who was considered the first serial killer.
Oh,
Oh, an
Question.
American. Oh, that's totally surprising.
what?
H. Olms, born in
Ah.
New Hampshire, died in Philadelphia. American swindler and confidence trickster who is widely considered the country's first known serial killer, born May 16th, 1861.
Hmm.
May
Okay.
7th, 1896.
After.
So yeah, even the term
Yeah.
serial killer had not been invented yet
Mhm.
Mhm.
at the time. So just a straight up murder.
I
I'm
googled.
sure this.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I googled the story because I forgot what I was looking for, and you know how Google will give you other questions that you might
Mhm.
want to
Mhm.
know. One of them was, is the story Perfume based on a true story? And it said no, but there was another murderer in Spain. I forgot the name, but what he got caught doing was he was making soap out of people. So like that was like the closest story that they could find that kind of goes with Perfume. But yeah, it was like a Spanish farmer, and it was like young children and women that he would target. And he would make,
Manuel Blanco Roma Santa.
yes, that scary name too. It's
Oh,
creepy.
scary person. Well, an artist rendering of
Yeah, it's creepy too.
receding hairline,
Talk-
the whole 9 yards. Receding hairline, beard, serial killer.
Talking about based on a true story, do you think that Fluidum Vitale, like that guy, is that based on a true story?
What did you say?
The Fluidum Vitale guy
The
who like walked
scientist
up to
who
the top of the
revived
mountain.
him after
Yeah.
the mountains.
Like, do you think that was like a real
Oh.
theory?
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I totally forgot that happened. He became famous, right? And then he got
Yeah.
lost on the mountain or something.
Yeah, he just went up there and took off all his clothes and was like, I'm gonna be younger.
Yeah. I completely forgot that was part of the story.
Wait, where was this?
Like right after he left the mountain, when his makeover,
He was like, he
Yeah.
was
his
a count,
scientific
right?
makeover, yeah.
Some rich guy was trying to prove using Granui his
Like
theory
Mhm.
theory. Yep.
of not interacting with things that come from the ground.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was
Yeah.
like using him as for an experiment to prove his weird theory of terrain, something
Yes.
terrain something. Yes, wow, that was such a side story.
Mhm.
Where was that?
What was the theory again? Do you remember, Adina?
Yeah, it's the idea that the earth contains poisonous gases that can do damage, while places at higher elevations are healing.
For healing.
When I
Yeah.
looked up that term, all the results are related to perfume. So probably not
It's
real.
not real.
Louis Vatel, is that it?
Yeah.
Louis Vatel, okay. Yeah, that was a strange sort of side
Yeah.
story, which was it was still interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Was that when he got sick and the guy was like, why can't you get sick later? Or was that
Yeah,
No,
fake
that was
sick.
Baldini.
Oh,
Oh,
fake
yeah, that
sick.
was.
Yeah, that was Baldini.
Oh, right.
He was so sad. He was so like selfish about Grenouille's sickness because he knew Grenouille was the key to his business's ultimate success. And so even though he was like treating Grenouille and treating him like a a sick human, or a person would treat another sick human under their care, really like the ulterior motive was, please don't die because I need you to keep my business alive, you know? Yeah, that was Baldini. And again, just like such a duplicitous person. He was like, I'm caring for this person because I care about them, but really I want them to not die because I know they're going to be the key to my success. And you know,
Yeah.
silly human, a lot of like interesting human qualities in this book, you know,
Yeah.
featuring a very non-human main character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Later, he faked the sickness
Mm-hmm.
from
Right.
the violence.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where he probably learned it from. Like, oh, if I pretend to be ill, like I can get
Take care of me.
get
Get what I want.
what I need.
Well, it says that he was begging him to please not breathe his last just yet, but to wait at all possible until the day after tomorrow, until his theory could be proven.
Yeah, I remember.
So he had a lot of people around him just wanting to use him.
Yeah.
Think of all the pseudoscience that was floating around back in the day. You know, the elixirs, the whole idea of like a magic elixir and chronology. That was, you know, people really believe that stuff to be real and true. Well, I guess the first real one of those was that the earth was flat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder, yeah, they knew the earth was round by that point. Okay, well, that seems to be all the questions that I have. We already talked about the ending. We don't need to keep going back to that. Did anyone else have anything they want to add about the book before we wrap it up?
Just that it's definitely one of my favorites. I enjoyed listening to it because I didn't actually read it. And then I wonder, I don't know, I'm still like in line to get it from the library. So I kind of want to, I don't think I'll read it again, but I kind of want to look at it to see like what it looks like. I doubt there's pictures.
Yeah, and you can read certain excerpts that were
Mhm.
that you want to reread. Those are all
Might do that. I wonder where that'll happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were saying that now you gotta watch the movie.
Mm-hmm. I would say if you read the book now, you would enjoy it. I think.
Do you feel like it encapsulates the essence of the book, or is it, you know, sometimes like a Hollywood rendering of a movie or a book can be sort of like the bastardization of.
I think they did their best to incorporate the essence of the story. They had to make some tweaks just because I think it would be too hard to do it on video, but I feel like when you see it, you realize why they changed certain things, make it more understandable, because the book is so rich in how it describes like the characters and the setting. I feel like they did a good job. Like there's some shots that are kind of, I think the movie came out in 2006, and you wouldn't think the cinematography, I guess, is like a little advanced. It looks interesting. So I think they did the best they could there. The murder part takes up a little bit more space in the movie than it did in the book.
Yeah.
So
Makes
that's
sense.
why, like, other parts are kind of more short.
Did they show him interacting more with the victims and more like portrayal of like more of a romance than like of just the scent that we read in the book that he desires? I was
Yeah,
wondering that. It's like
they
more
show him.
engaging.
They show him like going up to at least I want to say like 3 of them and how he actually kills them. And then with the last, so at the very end where he's up on the gallows, I guess, that's when he kind of has more of like a romantic thought, like, oh, what if instead of killing that first virgin, I would have just been with her, I think is what's going through his mind. That's the only time where it seems romantic. With the lady that he paid to do the experiment on her, that one is interesting in the movie because it's a little bit different, but it starts the same way that it is in the book, but then she becomes a victim. So the victims are a little bit different in the movie than they are in the book. Because I know the book describes like, you know, who he killed and things like that. In the movie you get to see it, but it's actually it's only I think 12. It's like less than in the book. But I think that's just for the sake of time.
Is there a narrator? Is there somebody
There-
at the beginning who describes stuff?
There is, yeah. There is.
I figured there would be.
So yeah, it's a little different, less, I guess, less intrusive than in the book, but there still is. Yeah. But yeah, I think if you guys read the book, you'll like the movie. And the only places I was able to find it were on Amazon or YouTube.
And you had to pay for it, right?
I did, yeah. I think it was like $4.
I might have enough credits, like every time you
Yeah.
delay, pick a different day, they keep giving me these digital credits, so maybe I have enough to watch a movie.
Yeah.
That'll work too. Yeah, I mean, even if you have a disc drive too, you could probably get it from the library. I didn't, and then it was like $40 to buy one. So I was like, 4 or 40. I'll just pay the 4. Although I might need a disc drive in the future. Who knows? Probably a good thing to have.
Yeah, I got it for library stuff.
Okay. Well,
Good choice, Julia.
thanks. Yeah, I've always wanted to read
Yeah.
this book. It's been on my wish list for a really long time, and then I finally found it and was like, yeah, that's a book club book for sure.
I don't know if this is still true.
Any
Oh, sorry. I read that it's the top selling novel in Germany,
Oh, cool.
like of all time.
Of all
Wow.
time,
That's what I read somewhere.
readers? That's crazy. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
anyone read The Reader. That would be a really good book club book. I've already read it. I'm not opposed to reading it again, but that's another German writer translated. And then of course there's a movie, like a really, really good movie about it. I would feel like that would be the most popular German.
Yeah, maybe it's like an old article, so it might have been debunked
Yeah.
now.
I mean, I believe it. It's Germans are weird. Clearly, this is a clear indication that Germans are weird.
When you got to smell the little perfumes, do you remember what the scents were?
I only got to smell 3, and I only remember one, which was baby, and it wasn't what my notion of what a baby was gonna smell like, you know, because I think most people, they attribute babies to like baby powder, you know, like a talc sort of smell. But this one was more like milky, a little more like raw. Yeah, it was so long ago. Like
Yeah.
2009, 2010, something like that. But yeah, I do remember it having more of like a milky smell, a little more raw, you know, and the lady who let us smell it, she's like, yeah, everyone thinks that baby is gonna smell like baby powder and like stuff like that. I think it did have some of those like fresher elements like baby's breath and yeah, baby's breath is probably the only thing, but it's more true to like, I guess, what an actual baby, an element of a baby would smell like with the milk and the like fresh skin
Yes.
and everything. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't remember what the other two were. And I don't remember what their names were, anything about them. I wish I did, but yeah, baby, I do remember specifically smelling baby and being like, that's not what I thought it was going to be like at all. But I can see why that would be baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So we got to figure out where those vials exist. Other than
right.
in Wilmington, North Carolina. I mean, there's 1,200 of them. It was an
Mhm.
interesting, you know, obviously an interesting concept for them to do a movie perfume tie-in.
Mhm.
And for it to be sort of like limited edition.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, I did have another like personality based question, like what's everyone's favorite smell? We'll end there. We'll end there with a nice easy question. Natalie, what's your favorite smell?
The New York bagel.
That's
I
a
mean,
good one. That's
honestly,
a
like
good one.
all the New York like food smells, like all the desserts, the pizzas, like I don't know, I just feel like the food here have just such like full-bodied smells, but the bagel especially. Like I love it when I go get bagels
Mm,
and then like have some like in my car and then the car smells like
mm.
bagels.
Yeah, we have some everything bagels in our house right now. And granted, they're not New York bagels, but they're everything bagels. And sometimes I'm just like, smells so good. Yeah, that's a good answer, Natalie. I like that one.
I also love the smell of my cats. Like
That's
like
cute.
my face is like always cuddling them. So I feel like I don't know, and even like a lot of times, especially with them like cleaning themselves so much, they smell like wet cat and like I don't know, it's like a different smell. It's not like a
Yeah.
bad smell. It's just like it's a very I mean maybe because I love them, I'm biased, but it's a very comforting smell to
Mhm.
nuzzle my face in their kitty bodies.
So bagels and cats. All right. Daniela, what's your favorite smell?
Definitely florals.
Mm.
Roses. There's this, I don't know what I don't know if it's jasmine or not, but there's this branch or this bush that we have. It grows kind of up against the wall, and it looks like jasmine, but I actually don't know what I've actually haven't seen jasmine in person, I don't think, but I think that's the smell. Because it only smells like at night. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, so like during the day there's not that much, and at night when the breeze like comes by, you really smell it. And I've noticed that on some streets in certain cities they have it in bushes too. So as you're driving, you'll get a whiff of it. I like floral smells. I think my favorite smells are more nature based, probably because there's such a lack of nature here in LA. Um, but like wet grass or when someone just cuts grass, that's really, I think wet grass is better than cut grass. Sometimes cut grass can be a little too like strong. But when it's yeah, when it's rained, when it's wet, it smells good.
Yeah, I always attribute cut grass to it's spring. Like, you know, you have these smells that are obviously attributed to different seasons. So when I smell somebody who's just cut their grass, I'm like, all right, it's spring. Here we go. So another like emotion, nostalgia tie-in with the scent.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Dina, what's your favorite smell?
Waiting for the train. Anyway, rain, the woods,
Mhm.
uh, and then like flower smells, lilac, um, and wisteria is a new one I learned because it was all over Italy when I was there.
Mm,
It looks really
So it was pretty nice.
Mhm.
I'm sure that
And
smells.
of course, food. Yeah,
When
I
it
agree
comes
with
to
that one too.
food, I always I don't know if it's my favorite, but I find it comforting when I smell my mom roasting chilies
Mm.
because we don't always do
Mm.
it. Like I feel like having all the convenience here, we don't always make like fresh chili, I don't know, paste, things like that. So when she does it, which is like once in a while, it's like, oh, I remember that smell. But it's kind of a bad smell in the sense that it makes you cough. Like
Mm.
coughing, but at
Yes.
the same time, like, it smells like chili.
So comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Garlic in butter or olive oil. That's like
Mm.
the best.
Mm,
And
yeah.
on bread.
Yep.
Fresh baked bread.
Yeah. I think my favorite smell, it's a tie. I love lavender. Lavender's like, I don't know. I just love the smell of lavender. I mean, I don't know who doesn't like the smell of lavender, but sort of incorporated lavender into my house. It was part of my wedding. And I'm growing it in my front yard right now. So that's very important. I also really love almond extract.
Mm.
So anything that has
Well.
almond in it, like almonds themselves don't really have a smell. So I don't know how they're getting that smell from the almond, but the extract from almonds is like, like amaretto, if you've ever had an amaretto that's got that very almond extract type. I love that. And then there's like some lotions that have the almond. And then my favorite drink of all time is almond milk tea. I love
Mm.
yeah, and it's my husband's favorite too. We always order two, so we both have one.
Oh.
And yeah, I just love the smell of almond extract. It's such a sweet, and I know my mom used it a lot when I was a kid, so there must be some nostalgic
Nostalgia to
emotion
it.
attached. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. Those are our favorite.
If you love lavender, I use for hand sanitizer a lavender hand sanitizer spray from the Honest brand. It's a really, really good smell. It's like super lavendery and
Yeah,
fragrant.
Trader Joe's had one, or they probably still have one, a lavender spray hand sanitizer that kept running out during the pandemic, but now they have it constantly in stock, and that also smells really good. But probably Honest Company has a really good smelling one too.
It's very fragrant.
Mm.
I love sanitizing other people too. Other people's hands. Smell the fragrance.
I like having a scented hand sanitizer because it makes me want to use it more.
Mhm.
Sometimes when I just have like the regular alcohol one, I'm
It
like,
smells so alcohol-y. Yeah.
I'll just wash my hands.
I just have a prison sanitizer.
Which one?
It's made in the New York Penitentiary.
Oh, they made it.
It says it on the bottle.
How does that smell like?
I don't know, it's not that great, but then some people use it and they're like, I really love this smell. And I'm like, all right.
New Yorkers
would
are
be-
weird. You guys are weird.
That would be an interesting place to do like a scent, like, I don't know, scent glossary for prison. Like,
Yeah, if we could compartmentalize all our scents like Grenouille does. I mean,
yeah,
it's all in here. Everything is all up in here. Can you imagine?
wow.
Like
Yeah,
a
can you
like a
imagine how
filing
almonds
cabinet in
smelled
your
to him?
brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 10:35, getting quite late. Do you guys want me to introduce you to the next book?
Sure.
This one is probably going to be a little more difficult for y'all to find. So if you can't find it, it's just not as popular a book as the other ones that I've chosen. And that was sort of out of desperation because I didn't have a book. for May, and then I had to go to this bookstore and was like, I'll find a book there. And then it was a terrible bookstore. It didn't have anything. And there's nothing in there. Even though there is a huge bookstore, it didn't have anything. Nothing that I was like, oh yeah, that looks like a good book club book. So, but then I found Louise Erdrich, which I've read 2 of her books, both very, very good books. So this is just another one of her books, and it's another aspect of a culture that it's really important to know about, which is it doesn't say, it just says tribal lands, so there's probably multiple Indian tribes that are described in this book. But anyways, it's called Tracks by Louise Erdrich. This is, I'm sure there's other publishings of this book, but I'll read you the back so you know what to expect. Set in North Dakota at a time in this century when Indian tribes were struggling to keep what little remained of their lands, Tracks is a tale of passion and deep unrest. Over the course of 10 crucial years, as tribal land and trust between people erode ceaselessly, men and women are pushed to the brink of their endurance, yet their pride and humor prohibits surrender. The reader will experience shock and pleasure in encountering a group of characters that are compelling and rich in their vigor, clarity, and indomitable vitality. So describes a time that probably not a lot of people are familiar with. And the 2 books that I've read by Louise Erdrich, very good, clever and straightforward, and really interesting, well fleshed out characters that are surprisingly funny and endearing. So, but this is an earlier work. I think this was written in, I want to say 88. The other 2 books that I read are more recent, like 2000. I think The Roundhouse was 2014, if I had to guess, and then The Sentence was 2020 or 2021, but it was about the pandemic in 2020. So, so you know, it would be interesting to see how her writing has evolved, because she's written a lot of books. She's a very, very prolific writer, and I'm interested to read it. So that's what we're going to read for May.
Yeah, sounds like a good pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's probably going to be a little more difficult to
There are
find.
2 copies in Queens.
Yeah, not difficult for Queens. I already requested one. Adina can have the next.
Requested?
Yeah, I requested it. I don't know which library it's
I
coming
see
from.
it. Request Whitestone.
I was able to get it already from the library.
Great. Okay, never mind.
It came before
Okay.
Perfume.
I
Yeah,
just requested it, Natalie.
Nice. Pick it up
beautiful.
together.
Good job.
Josh just got his library card there.
Oh, great.
Good job, Josh. Way to support. Isn't there some sort of controversy going on with Mayor Eric Adams trying to like severely reduce the budget of the New York
Of the library system?
library?
I haven't heard about that, but
Like he wants to,
Probably.
due to budget cuts, it's like, oh, we'll close on the weekends and this and the other. And people are like, why don't you take some of that money from everything else that you invest in and put it into the library, which is what you should be doing in the first place. And you know,
yeah, I like their Saturday hours.
Yeah.
yeah. So,
They
you know,
like how they're
budget
open
cuts.
till 8 on Thursdays, which is great.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen and there'll be unlimited usage of the library.
Adina,
Especially because it was. Hmm?
I was gonna say, did you do the bike tour yesterday?
I did my own bike ride. I went with a group of people that I go with sometimes.
Oh, nice.
If you ever want to go. The Unisphere,
Is that their
9
name?
a.m. on a Sunday.
I don't have a bike.
You could get one.
You go on one of those city bikes if they still have them. I don't know.
They're not out this far yet, so
Oh,
Oh, okay.
maybe soon.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us, Julia.
Thanks for reading, and I will see you next month.
Yeah,
Take care, guys.
thanks.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Bye.
Have a
Have
good
a good
night.
night. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.